Well, so wow, you guys really delivered. We asked for a vision for the next 3 to 5 years, and you gave us one for the next 300 to 500 years of funding with our money tree. So it's a good thing we have a money tree. This meeting has more than delivered for what the expectations we set, because we set out to hear different points of view on LGS. And we did that. We have in the room the LGS caregivers, thank you, the LGS families at home, and we heard you. We also heard aggregate information from surveys and things that we've done, whether it was through Anup Patel's talk on seizures or surgery. I always want to call it seizures, surgery versus medication, an LGS trial that they're doing, the PCORI-funded study. Or it was, the survey that we did at the foundation or other surveys that were done. We heard perspectives from other advocacy groups, right? Like we're sitting here talking about Child Neurology Foundation's work and SCN8A's work and the work with Inchstone, and we heard from researchers, right? So we heard from healthcare providers. How in the heck do I dose major motor seizures to my patients, right? When that's what the trial was on and that's what the label said, right? And so we heard from HCPs, we heard from the FDA. Michelle, thank you for being here, and for Phil and the others that are at home, thank you guys for being here and always being willing to open and discuss with us. And then clinical trialists, right? If you can stump Dennis DeLugos and have him learn more in 60 minutes with a group of probably a lot of LGS moms in that room, that's always a good thing, because he's out there, pushing a lot of clinical trials out there. And then industry. I mean, we have our patient advocates in the room, our patient advocacy people. We've got commercial people here. We have got researchers and the work that they're doing. And so we set out to hear all of your perspectives, not to agree, but to hear them. Because this makes my team crazy, but I'm a firm believer in creating the laundry list of ideas and then seeing which of those things have multi-stakeholder interest. So, and which of those things are ripe for somebody to start a work group. I'm looking at you, sleep people, right? So that there was a lot of energy in the room, and you saw different stakeholder groups engaging and interested. And that's how you fund a strategy. That's how you think about a strategy, is you start with a conversation like this, and many more conversations will be coming. So thank you for delivering. We are following this up with a family day, which starts tonight for our families, and we're bringing in a bunch of families to talk about what we've talked about today, and we're going to continue these conversations and push them forward. A summary from this meeting will be forthcoming. A lot of it will be summed up from what came from the breakouts. All of the talks, I believe we just need to get permission from the 2 industry speakers, but all of the talks will be online within the next week or 2, as well as hopefully slides. We'll get permission for those first, as well as the caregiver talks, which I think are incredibly powerful, and you can take those back to your community if you want and share them in any types of training. And then we have a lot of work to do internally to think about what we're going to do with this money tree. Sometimes, this is going to come back and bite me in the butt, but sometimes I don't think the problem is always money. Sometimes I think the problem is consensus. I think the problem is design. The problem is coming up with how you move forward on something. And we love to get in a room and debate, because we're trained to do that, but we don't always come into a room and agree. And so, I don't know how many times I've heard the FDA say, well, what does the field think? And the field's like, it's a beautiful thing to debate and dissect and push, but it's also a beautiful thing to come together. So we have a lot of work to do, and none of you are off the hook. I know where you live. I know where you work. I will find you. I will ask you questions. And as we guide our strategy, and the ultimate guiders of our strategy are our board of directors, who many are watching at home, who listen very carefully to the patient and family community first, which is who we represent, and then what's possible based on the work that you guys are doing and what's energetic. So what's our action plan? Our action plan is to keep the conversation going. Our action plan is to fund from this meeting, put out actual RFAs to researchers, and to continue our power of convening and connecting, to continue the conversation about what's important across stakeholder groups. And there will be times for meetings like this where we have a big, broad discussion, and then there will be times to have a very narrow discussion on things that we, with the people in the room that are going to move it forward. I'll just pick on sleep again, right? Or I'll pick on, picking specific instruments to use in clinical trials, right? That's not everyone in this room, right? That's a subgroup of people. So moving that forward. And if you look back to our previous meeting of the minds on disease-modifying therapies, what came of that meeting? Well, what came of that meeting was a whole lot of education in our community, to the point that you have caregivers and parents interacting equally with you in this room. So that is a tangible thing that came from that meeting, is the amount of education that we put out into our community. In addition to that, in the last 2 years, we are working more with industry in the way that was outlined by Scott from Takeda and others, right, in ways that we never have, because you're asking us, what do caregivers say? What does the patient community have to say? And that is a tangible outcome from getting together and thinking about disease-modifying therapies and how that relates to our work with the FDA and how that relates back to the PFDD that we did. So we're having those conversations, and we're weighing in on everything from this protocol is ridiculous or awesome, it could be awesome, right, to, hey, when you think about designing your protocol, right, this is how you should think about dosing or formulation, or like this is what the community has to say about your, top of the mouth strip, right? To aftermarket, when something goes, obviously we share our clinical trials with our community. We have many people who are desperate, but to aftermarket stuff too. How can you really make a difference aftermarket? And we hear from our families that are new to LGS that are coming into the spaces, they're not getting access to the newer treatments. They're not getting referrals for surgery. By and large, they're not getting this kind of stuff. And they look at our kids that are in their, 30s and go, I don't want, I'm not feeling the Dilantin. I'm not feeling the, the phenobarb. I'm not feeling the, the medicines that are older. I want these newer medicines, right? And I want to know holistically. I don't want to just think about seizures. I want to think about the bigger deal. So, and then from that, we put out a funding RFA. We didn't get a ton of basic scientists that were interested, but I will tell you what, if you know Yvonne Soltej, and he's one of the leaders in the field, he's in that cusp of the 3% of innovators that are changing the world, and I think that this will get traction. So we put out that RFA, and we funded Yvonne and Ryan Jamilikowski, and they're pushing this forward, this idea of looking at the EEG, and we're having a lot of discussions about that. So, and then that led us to this meeting. So we have legitimate, tangible outcomes from the initial meeting of the minds, and there will be action. It won't just be the same conversation over and over. We won't be able to do everything right away, but we're eager to hear. There will be a survey to follow up this meeting. We hope that you'll fill it out. And if there's anything that you did not hear, if you go home and you're like, oh my gosh, we didn't talk about this thing, or if there's something that you want to passionately advocate for with that money tree, please email me, Tracy at lgsfoundation.org. We'll be moving forward on that, and then you will hear back as attendees of this meeting where we came down, and you might love it, you might hate it, but everything that was mentioned are all really critical and important things that need to get done. And I just want to end by saying a few thank yous. So I want to thank our incredible sponsors for this meeting, because we would not be here. And if any of you have planned a meeting lately or bought milk, you know that everything has exponentially increased in price. So thank you to our incredible sponsors, to Takeda for being our premier sponsor, and then to each and every, I meant to bring up the list so I could read the whole list of sponsors, but many of you are in the room. Thank you for convening this conversation. Yes. Thank you to our organizers. I know we gave you a nice round of applause, but these people have worked their tails off this weekend, and so thank you to them. Thank you to all of our speakers. Wow, what an education that we got. Thank you to our families for making yourselves vulnerable and putting it out there, and then coming to this meeting and asking the tough questions, and not being timid in any way that your lived experience does not make you an expert on this disease. More so, I think, than some of us that have studied it our whole lives but don't live with it. So, and thank you for the humility of everybody in the room who understands that. We're helping patients and that they deserve an equal seat at the table, because I remember, and many of us that are older remember, the era of seeing patients and running the other direction, and the FDA not wanting anyone to talk to patients, right? And that line really being drawn. So I want to thank the advocacy groups that have come and supported us here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for understanding that LGS is an evolutionary disease. There's always an etiology, and thinking about how we can work together. It is not easy. It's a pain in the butt. It's hard. But we go so much further, faster together than when you're by yourself. I always tell my team, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And going far is hard. Collaboration's hard. So I want to thank... we had representation here from the FDA, and thank you again, Michelle, but also from contract research organizations. I don't know if any of you guys got a chance to meet Julianne before she was here, but thank you. I know from industry, we also have like medical science liaisons and others that are here. And then I want to thank our home audience for bearing with us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sending your questions in and flagging in. And I just want to thank you again. If there is a happy, nerdy place for me, it is a whole group of people thinking about how we're going to change the world for something that is as devastating as LGS and DEEs. And you guys chose this. A lot of us families in here, we didn't choose this. Like, we're stuck with LGS. But the amount of respect I have for you for choosing to be an LGS, to choosing to give a talk, choosing to give us your time, choosing to fly in from Australia or other, far reaches of the world, choosing to have these conversations means the world to me. And I will give you a kidney if you need one, like whatever you need. I am here for you. So with that, I just want to say thank you again. This was an amazing meeting. And if you have any questions or follow-up, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.